Welcome everyone, this is your host Abraham L. Jaguar, a professional game master. Today I am going to talk about something that I think will be useful for both those that are starting to play tabletop RPGs as a solo or co-op experience that is without a game master, but it could also help those that have been playing solo or cooperative tabletop RPGs for a long time and they still feel as if they are just having a conversation about the game or just telling a story about the game, and they don't really feel as if they are actually interacting with the fictional environment. In tabletop RPGs, of course, you play a role and you play a game, tabletop role playing game. There is no storytelling, there is no thing, there is no conversation. That is, you are the character interacting with a fictional world. So I will tell you from start to finish how to do this without a game master. And for this, I am going to use the excellent, superb, and available for free Tricube Tales Game Master Emulator or Solo Rules. Let me get that into focus. Like I said, this is available for free, but you can also purchase it to support the publisher. You will find the link to it in the description of this video. When it comes to running a game without a game master, it is very simple. The game master in a traditional session describes the situation. The game master is playing the role of the game world. He's everything. He's non-player characters. He is the weather. He's playing the role of the entire thing. So as he describes the situation, this is what the player characters, or rather the players through the player characters, are seeing, what they are smelling, what they are touching, what they are hearing. The game master describes the situation so they are able to interact with the environment. So once you understand that, playing a solo tabletop role-playing game while actually playing a role, not having a conversation about the game, not telling a story about the game, not directing a movie about the game. No, you are a fictional character now, in this moment, in this session, interacting with the fictional environment. You realize that you only need to make the roles necessary for the initial scene to be established when you first start the adventure. In the case of the Tricube Tales solo rules, it is great because you have various tables to assist you with this situation. You only need your typical poker deck of cards and a few six-sided dice. In my case, for this, I will be using my the Dragon Bane six-sided dice. So you choose your tabletop RPG, your favorite one or one that you are curious about how it plays, and don't feel intimidated when it comes to the crunchiness of a particular system. If you have trouble remembering how to do something, you can always either have that place in the book bookmarked or make some notes, some cheat sheets, have them open at the table or on your computer or portable device or whatever, right? In order to establish the first scene, here you have various tables and there is no strict way on how to use them. You do have some guidelines here, but don't feel forced. Tabletop role playing games are all about creativity as well. So here we have a table of complex questions. I find this table adequate and I roll my dice. And it turns out that there is a question or subject or of advice. Advice, right? And let's roll again to see what it could be related to. But no, we only use that table if we roll doubles. But no, it was a simple roll of one and two. Two six-sided dice. One and two, the results. So advice, right? Advice. And now you draw a card to determine the randomness of the scene. Let's draw a card. Nine of spades. We take a look at the table. Hmm. The scene involves a standard crafty challenge. And now, let's say that we are running an urban adventure. We go to the urban adventure section because with Tricube Tales solo rules, you have a wilderness section, a dungeon crawl section, a distant voyage, social interaction section, anything that you need. And it is such a lightweight document, and it's adaptable to any genre. So let's say that we want to have an adventure in the city, right? We already know that there is advice involved. Let's determine if it's a large settlement or a small settlement. You have two tables. If you don't have a specific number or value, make something on the fly. I roll a die, and if it's evens, it's small settlements. If it's odd, the large settlement. It's odd, a large settlement. I roll to determine the settlement itself. It's a fort, port town. Advice in a port town, and there is a crafty challenge. I roll another die because there's a table here determining the populace. The populace is quite industrious and busy. You can already come up with the picture, the environment, the image. You're using your mind's eye to envision things, to feel as if you're actually there, to listen, to hear, to smell. I can smell the salty air of this port town, and everybody's moving about, transporting crates and barrels. Now we roll to determine the exact location within that port town. We go to the urban locations, and I rolled a 5 and a 3. Prison or guardhouse. Now, something has sparked my imagination. My character, let's say I'm playing a rogue, my character was called to come to a guardhouse within this port city because as a rogue that has been through various situations concerning security matters and issues, they want advice on how to better secure or protect the port town. That's why he was called. He will need to design a crafty plan of action, taking a look at the guard posts, the protocols that are being followed, the procedures for the security of the port town. He needs to come up with a plan. That's why he was invited. He needs to craft that plan. Now we take a roll to see what people are involved in this situation. And we have a 3 and a 4. We take a look at the table. Farmer, smallholder. Now, because this is a port town, it felt more to me like perhaps, depending on the setting, they could be kelp farmers. They actually farm kelp, and somebody has been stealing the kelp. That's why they need that security, that help. Who is doing this and at what time? They haven't figured out how things are occurring. Maybe this is your standard fantasy or science fantasy setting, correct? And now we roll a table because we need to determine the urban events. It's a 4 and a 3. Monstrous activity. There is a suspicion that there is some sort of aquatic monster eating the kelp. So I arrive to the city. I enter the guardhouse. And I immediately think that there is a guard captain waiting for me, right? And you take things from there. You interact with things. You play the role instead of asking questions. Because here in this emulator, you do have the how to answer questions that is determining the yes or no. But don't ask, you're not having a conversation with anyone. You're interacting in a fictional environment. Don't go and, is the guard captain happy to see me? No. I look at the face of the captain and say, well met, captain. Or if you don't want to do voice acting, I take a look at the face of the guard captain, look him straight in the eye and say hello, greet him, say hi. And the first thing that I want to determine is if the guard captain is happy to see me. I rolled a no. So now we are going to roll in the complex questions table to determine the reason why the captain is not happy to see me. The 3 and 3. The result is delay. The captain looks at Frank the rogue and says, "You're late, Frank." And because I rolled a double number, a 3 and 3, there is a secondary subplot. I know that my character background has established that my rogue is always very formal, very punctual. I answer back, "But Captain, you told me to meet with you at 10 a.m. Now we determine the secondary subplot. What could be the situation, right? We roll again on the answer table. 1 and 2. Advice. The guard captain looks at Frank and says, "It is my advice that you should always arrive at least 5 or 10 minutes before the accorded time." As Frank, I make a frown and answer, "Well, Captain, that is not a standard procedure, is it not? Now, please, let's get on to business. I will need to take a look around town and the area where the kelp has been stolen to come up with a plan of action." Now I roll to determine the answer of the guard captain. 6 and 1. The captain replies to Frank, "Yes, that is logical, but I would also recommend that you consider taking a look at the routes, the waterways that connect our town with the neighboring town of." You make a roll to determine the name of the town. There are many tables here that could serve for inspiration. At the back, you'll have like an icon table. We make a roll, and it's 3 and 3. We take a look at the result of 3 and 3, and there are two guards crossing spears. The port town of Spear Crossing. They have always been jealous of our profits when it comes to kelp harvesting. You see how things proceed. Everything through interaction. I'm just making the rolls and coming up with the interpretations of the results, and I am surprising myself. I didn't want to specifically get into a kelp farming situation, but now we have two interesting plots to explore, two interesting avenues for adventure. The aquatic monster that has been stealing the kelp, but there could also be the possibility of a neighboring town. You will see that you end up surprising yourself as your mind produces these results, these interpretations from comic books, from video games, from movies, from literature. You are shuffling all of those things that you are already familiar with, or even from real life, and your mind just tosses them in there, tosses them in the adventure framework, and that's how you start to come up with the flow of the scenario. It's so simple to do. Now you could be thinking, all right, but what if I am playing this with someone else, with one or more people, without a game master? Then I would recommend that one player is the person coming up with the interpretations, because otherwise it's going to be very clumsy and cluttery. You're going to be like, okay, I roll, and the result is mistrust, So what do you think, guys? What do you think that this represents? And then Pop speaks. Well, mistrust. I think that we are very mistrustful between each other. We have just met, and then Richard says, "No, no, no, no. Mistrust means that they don't trust us in that town." And then Jeremy says, "No, mistrust could be that there is a general mistrust when it comes to the trade of what the town is producing and marketing. And so it's more of a grander scheme of things, rather unrelated to our personal connection between each other or the towns. You see, you just have to have this conversation. You are pulled out of the experience. Who the fuck are you talking to? This is a tabletop role-playing game. There is only the player characters, the non-player characters, the game world. The players have disappeared. The game master is not there. There is no game master. There is only the game world. So you use your tables to determine these results. If you are playing with friends without a game master, I would recommend that you or someone else should be the one coming up with the interpretations, and everyone else interacts with those interpretations. And remember, use your system of choice to carry out the challenges, right? Like here, in the case of this is a crafty challenge. You will need to examine the waterways, perhaps the roads that connect to the town, land roads, because what if there is some sort of sabotage going on through land rather than water? Perhaps you will decide to acquire the proper equipment or gear to do a bit of diving and explore the depths, or find a way to discover if there is actually a monster eating the kelps, right? But yeah, that also makes you think maybe it's not a dangerous monster since it's perhaps taking the kelp to eat them, right? Or maybe it's a monster that is actually dangerous, and as he's moving about hunting prey, both human and animal prey, it starts to mess up the kelps as it moves its huge body, disrupting the kelp harvest. So there are so many possibilities. There is no limit. And based on the context, the logical progression of things, you can also determine when the adventure is going to conclude and move on to another situation. In this case, the adventure could conclude when you finally determine the real threat. Maybe there are thieves pretending to be monsters from the other town. Maybe there is an actual monster taking away the kelps. Maybe it's all a lie, and the guard captain is actually stealing the kelp and just hired you to pretend that he's doing something, right? If the captain is not guilty, you can also come up with a brilliant plan or strategy to protect the kelp from being the kelp harvest from being stolen or whatever, whatnot. So just imagine how many things you can come up with. Maybe it results in a very grand thing, a greater threat. You never know because of the results. Maybe while you are, let's say that you are diving and taking a look underwater to see what is going on, and you stumble upon a chest underwater, and you open it, and you discover an artifact of great power that could change the entire world. A bit like the Lord of the Rings, right? So it's so fascinating. And again, you can roleplay any tabletop RPG as a solo or co-op experience. And I must put emphasis on this. When you play with others, have someone be the person coming up with the interpretation of the results, and everyone else interacts with those results. You will interact with those results as well. But always roleplay. Even if you have your yes or no oracles, roleplay. Don't ask questions. Don't have a conversation with people that are not there. You can have conversations with the non-player characters, but don't start. Why did they hire me? What is this town's specialty? Is this town dangerous? No, no, no. You can find out all of that by playing a role. Want to find out if the town is dangerous? I try to remember if I've heard. Sorry, I try to remember if I have heard rumors of danger, of thievery, of murder in this town. And then you make your roll to determine if you have heard such rumors, right? So overall, it is very simple, very, very simple. And if you're using a guideline like the one included here in the Tricube Tales solo rules, you can actually determine when the adventure concludes. It says here, like there is a number of scenes, and when those scenes are complete, then you move on to another adventure. It could be like a cliffhanger of sorts. So I hope this video was informative and entertaining. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, consider joining as a member using the Super Thanks button. Take a look at the information in the description and in the pinned comment. This has been your host, Abraham L. Jaguar, professional game master. And remember, it is better to roleplay and fail in character than not to roleplay and fail as a player. Once again, thank you and see you later.